Greetings, everyone. Welcome to our last webinar for 2022. Can you believe it that we've been doing this for such a long time? My name is Ismael Yuste, and today's topic is getting your handle on your data storage. So today I'm joined by a wonderful gentleman by the name of Ismael and my colleague, Alistair Payne. Before I introduce them, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about CloudEDU. So CloudEDU are Google's premier partner. We're a small company based out here in Cape Town, South Africa. So we hold portfolios of multiple different skill sets, one of those being teacher professional development, where we are focusing on change management as a key driver towards technology and ICT adoption. So we are also a tier one Google Chromebooks reseller in Africa. So if the institution is ready for any form of technologies, look us up. We are your premier partners. We also do a lot of support to our institutions right across the continent. So one of those supports is we do technical audits, and I think that's where Mr. Payne's major forte lies. So if an institution is already on Google and you're not really sure if the policies have been set up correctly, or maybe you are struggling with mails that are said to be sitting in a spam folder, or maybe there's some issues with malware or maybe some phishing. So we do those typical audits for your institutions just to make sure that we keep all the cyber attacks blocked out and making sure that your domain is safe and secured. We also do deployments. So for institutions that are not Google yet and they're quite interested in going Google, we do a Google deployment right across. Enough about us. I want to just quickly jump into the two people that I have. These are two engineers. Oh my goodness. I'm joined by engineers, people who are going to be talking to us about the technical, the nuts and the bolts of what happens into the storage side. So you all know Mr. Alistair Payne, but I'd like to focus on Ismael. Ismael, welcome to this webinar. And could you please tell us a little bit about yourself? And if you don't mind, just jump right in.
Hello, my name is Ismael Yuste. I'm a customer engineer based in Madrid, Spain, and I'm covering the whole EMEA, which is a broad region. And today I'm focused on higher education in the African market with this amazing partner from South Africa. I'm going to be talking to you about two topics: the new storage policy that we have been rolling up during this year at Google, and also how we are trying to help you with these storage management tools that are going to be helping you to manage this excess of storage that you may have. Okay, so basically the agenda for today is going to be focused on telling you why we are changing this and what is the education storage story that we have today. On the other side, we are going to be talking about the storage management tools, and my colleague Alistair is going to do a really interesting demo. And finally, we are going to give you some tips, ideas, resources, and strategies to support you as a customer in order to manage this storage now and in the future. Okay, first of all, why we are doing this? We discovered in some moment in the past, some years ago, that the unlimited space policy for workspace for education was a good idea in general, but we had some, let's say, spot users that were consuming a lot of storage. And also, as part of our commitment with the, I will say, green energy, green movement on how Google is managing the energy and how Google is managing the resources, we decided to move out from this unlimited storage and put some limits on that in order that you as a customer can be sure that you are making the best use on the resources, and also we as Google can sustain the business of education and continue offering free accounts for students all around the world. and also have some, possibilities to enhance, in this case, the storage and the capabilities with some paid licenses. Okay, so we're updating our storage policy because, in order to support the number of students, educators, and school leaders around the world, nowadays is something like 170 million. We need to accommodate that as the storage consumption is, as you may know, growing really fast. Okay. Also, as we have been saying, this storage is not always being consumed in the same way. And sometimes we have, for example, spot users that are using this storage for purposes that are other than teaching and learning in the schools and the universities. And finally, we found that the school leaders, the administrators on the console, were not able to manage the storage on the console. So we needed to fix that. Basically, we need to put the quota, but also we need to help the admins to set up those quotas and to be able to delete the excess of storage if needed. That is in order that we as Google remain committed to provide all the institutions around the world with the best-in-class experience in terms of teaching and learning, and the capability to get from the free license, which is the fundamentals, but also with some extending capabilities with the paid licenses that, as you may see, are really cheap because the highest license we have is something like $5 per student per year. Okay, but to have this excellent support quality educational experience. What is the new storage policy? What is this about? Okay, we are setting up a base for every single domain. So imagine that you are a university, you are going to have 100 terabytes of pool storage in your domain for your whole organization. Okay, this is going to be for free and for all the domains. This is, a lot of storage. You will see that it's more than 100 million documents, more than 8 million presentations, or more than 400,000 hours of video. Okay, so it's more than enough for your teaching environment. On top of that, depending on the size of your domain, let's imagine that you are more than 20,000 active users in your institution. You will get some free supplemental storage. Today, this is something like 5 gigabytes per user. Okay, so you can start summing up from those 100 terabytes. If you have those 20,000 active users, you will have a supplemental number of terabytes for the institution. And on top of that, we have two different ways to get into more storage. One is get into the teaching and learning upgrade, which is intended for teachers. And so you will get 100 gigabytes per license. And the other, possibility to get a boost on that storage is to go for the Education Plus, which is going to get 20 gigabytes per license. Okay, for Education Plus, for every 4 licenses you get for the students, you will get 1 for your staff for free. I will say included on the price. And also there is another way, which is not in the slide, but is something pretty new, which is the possibility to buy extended storage in buckets of 10 terabytes with a cost which is not as low as the Education Plus, for example. Basically, it's better for you to get storage through the Education Plus license. But if you need some more storage, you will be able to buy it with this, extended storage for Google Drive in your pool. Finally, which documents are counting against this storage pool? Basically, after May the 2nd, 2022, so half a year ago, we started counting some documents in Google Drive. Basically, every single doc from Google started to count against that storage. Okay, this is counting from that moment, but if this happens before that, the storage is not going to count it. Okay, unless you edit that document. Also, there are some objects in Google Drive that are counting from historically, like videos and recordings, Gmail information, the mails and the attachments, also PDFs and also cell drives. Okay, and the other change that we have made this year is Google Photos. Whatever is in high quality, not in standard quality, is going to count against this pool storage. Okay. So this is also important for you to understand how your users are using the storage and what is counting against the pool storage in your domain. What will happen if the limits are exceeded? Okay, let's imagine that you have a quota in your domain of 200 terabytes or 400 terabytes, and your domain goes over this. If your domain goes over this, going over the limit for more than the 25 of your quota, or for 15 or 14 days, whichever comes first, your domain will be blocked in terms of uploading data to Google Drive or uploading data to Google Photos. Okay, your users will be able to receive and send email because they are in a Workspace for Education domain, but will not be able to upload files to Google Drive, not able to upload photos to Google Photos, but they will be able to download and free space on your domain. Okay, so that's important for you. And if a user exceeds that storage limit, the impact will be immediate. Okay, this will be defined by the quotas that you are going to set. We are going to talk about it in the next slide. And the user will be impacted on that. Okay. And what is going to happen is the user will not be able to upload new files or images to Google Drive. Okay, so the quota has been achieved, so you cannot go over the quota. Also, they will not be able to back up photos or videos on Google Photos. Okay. Also, they will not be able to create new files in a collaborative manner. So whatever is creating a Google Doc or editing a Google Doc or on a spreadsheet, a slide, drawings, forms, or Jamboard will be limited, and until they don't reduce the storage. So let's imagine that the user has some recordings of meetings, and the user downloads it to its device and deletes it on the account, and so the quota is not achieved, will not be able to collaborate to upload data. Okay. Also, the recording in Google Meet is going to be impacted because, sorry, when you have a Google Meet, you will not be able to record, because at the end, the recording is going to be stored on Google Drive. Okay, so that's another feature that is going to disappear for those users. And finally, the users are still able to sign in and access basically Google Drive, which is where is the 90% of the problem usually, and view the files and also download files in order to get the space for the domain. Okay. Okay, we have been talking about the change in the policy and what is going to happen to your domain or your users when they get to the quota. Now we are going to focus on the solution for that. Okay, we are going to focus on the new storage management tools. I'm going to explain it, and then you will see a demo on how it works in your admin console. Okay. In the admin console, you will find a new place that is called storage, in which you will see the whole storage in your domain. Also, how much of it is Google Drive, how much of it is Gmail, how much of it is Google Photos. You will be able to see the top users in your domain and also view a whole listing of your users ordered by the volume of storage that they are using, and the same for cell drives, okay? And finally, you will be able to set up the quotas and manage all this storage. The focus on this tool is going to be on analyzing, then manage the limits, and finally remediate the storage, being user storage or cell drives, okay? On the analyze usage, you will be able to run a report in order to understand what is the usage by user or faculty, or focus on teachers or students with these new tools. Also, you will be able to, analyze that information and start defining which are going to be the limits on your faculty, okay? The second step is going to be enforce and manage the limits. You will be able to create general limits for your staff, your students, focus on organizational units or groups, okay? And also define some exception groups that are going to be, used by specific users that can have specific needs in terms of storage, okay? We will see that later. And finally, you will be able to remediate whatever is on cell drive usage and adjust the cell drive policies. Okay, you can go from from settings on nobody can create a cell drive, or you will be able to put in the future some quotas in order to put the limit on the storage on the cell drives. And also today you will be able to analyze, to define which are the owners, to take ownership of a cell drive, or even to delete a complete cell drive if this is your desire on the technical side. Now it's time for my colleague Alistair in order to go for the demo.
Thank you, Ismael. Listen, just important point just to highlight what you said there, that when somebody, an individual or a domain reaches its limit, there are going to be warnings, but the email does not stop flowing. Google have made this very clear that email is sort of critical to education. And so on that side of things, where in business that would stop the flow, in education, they do not stop the flow at any point in time. So you will continue to send and receive emails. So just to help you kind of put that practically on the screen at the moment is the Google Workspace for Workspace admin console. In this particular case, it's a training domain. For those of you that are quite familiar with the tool, there was a very basic reporting tool. Under reporting here on the left-hand side, there was highlights, and this has been around for a number of years. Firstly, just to note, it logged out. Just to note that reporting that you're seeing there coming through from Google does refresh itself every 24 hours. So it is not real time. So if you're making a change and then come back to the dashboard, it will take 24 hours for itself to update. But this dashboard you may be very familiar with. On the left-hand side, it gave you a total storage. In this case, it's 400 or just short of 500 gig on this side. And you were able to then drill down into some details. But it was a very shallow dive into kind of what information was available. It was giving you a breakdown by app in sort of in a graph form over time. That still remains in place if you want to see if there have been any sort of increases in storage over a time period. This would definitely still be your tool. And then a total storage used. The one that Ismael's referring to is the brand new tool that Google launched before they implemented the storage restrictions and limitations, so that you would be able, as a domain administrator or as a university, to be able to manage that very precious resource that you have, your data, that you can manage it and you can look after it. And it was found there as a card, either here on the screen, or it was actually mentioned here on the menu on the left-hand side. So if you click on that storage, that's the new tool that Ismael is referring to. So there you have it in real time. As I said, every 24 hours that is updated. This domain has 459 gigabytes. There's 459 gigabytes in Drive. There's my Gmail and there's my photos. Those are your three key pools of application or data in there. And then, as Ismael pointed out, the first and middle card that we have is a breakdown of the users. At this point, I just want to point out how important it is to have a good organizational unit structure and a group structure within your domain. So organizational units are found here on the left-hand side. It really is up to the institution and how they do it. It could be broken out into staff, admin, students. That could be one. You could have groups in there as well. And if you are in Plus Edition, you'll have the ability to do dynamic groups. So when it comes to your identity management, your end of year and your new year rollout as you're producing students, you can automatically put them into groups, and that would automatically apply a policy. And we're going to come to that next. But you're able to drill down into the users. And the first thing that you'll notice is that there's sort of a table. There's some columns available. Those columns are customizable. So I can click on the cog in the top right-hand corner. I can then remove items that I don't want to see. I'm able to add new items. There I'm going to put add. In this case, I'm going to add Google Photos because I want to see that side by side. I want to actually have email first. I'm going to drop and drag that up to the top. So those are my columns, the actual name of the person, the email address, and then the columns of email usage, drive usage, storage usage. Maybe I want to move storage above that or at the end to give my total storage. Save that, and my columns will adjust accordingly. So I have a breakdown of my users. I'm then able to rank it. At the moment, it's obviously largest user of storage to the smallest. And I'm able to obviously reverse that, change that, add a filter. And this is where my organizational unit comes in. I can look and identify and investigate by an organizational unit who might be using it. So a good working example is your alumni users. You've put them in an OU. You want to see what their usage is. Maybe you want to stop. And Ismael, I know you'll get this stop using Drive, but still using Gmail. So just a very powerful tool of you being able to pick up if anybody is what they're using, and if there's any sort of disproportionate use of storage, you would be able to identify and triage that person. So the middle tab is deep diving into the storage of the individual users. And then, as Ismael said, you can actually get into shared drives. I know there's been a lovely tool that's just been produced where you can make storage or a shared drive by an OU, but you will in due course be able to do it by size as well. That's a tool that's coming. There's the item cap of 400,000, a number of items that Ismael's mentioned. So two great tools. And then those are your storage limits, your policies. We just want to note that if you have a brand new domain, and we're probably not talking to anybody that's got a brand new domain, but if you are on a brand new Google Workspace account, that's what I mean by a domain, it is now by default set to 15 gig, and then you allow people to have greater size. But if you've been on Google Workspace, as many of our African universities have for multiple years, you would not have that as a default. So if you wanted to make that a default, in other words, all users blanket everybody in the domain to start off with a 15 gig, you would turn it on. Oh, I beg your pardon. Let me go back one step. You would turn it on for the entire domain. In this case, I'm just going to click on the root domain so that I've got everybody covered. Turn it on, type in my 15 gig, put a unit of storage in this case 15 gig, and click save. I'm not going to save it because I don't want to disrupt the domain, but that would give everybody a base. And if somebody was over, they would automatically be in excess or in breach of that particular limit. So one needs to be very careful on just clicking on save. But you would be able to apply that. You could then do an exclusion. In this case, I created a group called 50 gig storage. I've said anybody in that group called 50 gig storage automatically gets a storage limit of 50 gig. And I can either put people in that group, or I can have dynamic groups that are automatically created by, and Ismael, I think you've got some much better explanations, but you could have some policies set on that. Obviously, you don't want to be too complex. But there are ways in which you can then allow people to have unlimited or 50 gig or 100 gig storage on that. So that storage tool, very powerful, that more data, better data to see, but then also this ability to do the policy side of things. Then on the remediation, just want to point out that if you are on Plus Edition, a fantastic tool under security called the investigation tool. In our previous webinars, we've touched on investigation tool. It does deal with log files, so they'll go back 6 months. But if you're wanting to look back over those 6 months in the investigation tool and identify, let's say, somebody in a particular OU, or if they've got a particular file type, here's an example. I'm going to drive log events. I'm going to add a condition, and this is a real-time search. So this is, as opposed to the The other reporting, which is every 24 hours, this is real time. I'm going to say my actor is in the organizational unit called technical. Great. And I'm going to add another condition. And this time I'm going to add a document type. So I've said you must be in this OU. I'm being very specific. And the document type is, do you have an MPEG-4? In other words, do you have a video file that we can have a look at? Search. It is unstructured data, but it is real time, and it's busy looking in those log files, and it will very quickly pull out if anybody is in that OU and they have an MP4. I have that document, and then I can do some actions against it. The third one, just to mention, is, and Ismael, you'll speak to it a little bit later, you can access the data in a far more structured, granular way through GAM, and through the APIs. Here's just an example of where I'm calling a user and I'm saying, please list all the files in that particular person's drive. And there we have a list being pulled up. So just a really great tool, Ismael. Google have done very well in that regard, and they've provided so many nice tools for us. So that's on the demonstration side. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been really explanatory, this demo. I'm going to answer to your possible question now, which is how do I deploy this on my domain, okay? We have some recommendation. This is a standard higher education limit plan, I will say. This is basically a recommendation. You can change the numbers. You can change this based on the boxes that you have in your faculty, your university. But at the end, this is a similar approach for all of us. What we are suggesting is to have one top-level organizational unit policy, which is 15 gigabytes, in order that nobody can go over 15 gigabytes in the domain, except the groups that you have in the left of the slide. On top of that, you can define some staff, students, and alumni boxes for the alumni. Our recommendation is to have something like 1 gigabyte or something like this, in order that they can use Gmail to communicate with you, but they have a limited space and drive and photos, in order that they don't use the storage, the pool storage for the university. Okay. For the current students, the recommendation will be something like 30 gigabytes. It can be between 15 and 30, depending on how long they have been in the university, for the undergrad or the grad students, okay? And finally, in the staff part, our recommendation is something like 50 gigabytes. In general, you will see that the majority of the users are going to be using less than this. This is something like an upper limit. It's not that I get all that 50 gigabytes for that user, and even if they don't use it, they will be blocking that. It's something like the pool storage is working for everybody, and you have the limit for the top spenders. And you can define different boxes like professors, TAs, faculty, or admins, in order to define different policies if needed. Also, this can be done by organizational unit, but if you want to have some specific boxes in like some steps for your different users, you can use groups, and you can use dynamics groups, which are a really good feature on Education Plus, in order to define different boxes, like, for example, 50 gigabytes for power users and administrators, 100 gigabytes for VIP staff and graduate media departments, and finally 500 gigabytes for researchers and staff, okay? Also, you can explore the possibility to move some of the storage that your users are putting into Google Drive to tools like Google Cloud Storage, okay, which is probably the best place to put, for example, media files or big data or genomic data, things like that that researchers are doing. Many times it's better to go in this kind of solution instead of Google Drive for many different reasons. Okay, on top of that, some different situations or best practices for some of your users, or for use cases that your admin may find, okay? For example, they can find big files from on the admin console or audit logs. Okay, On this, you have been seeing that having your reporting tools on the console and also GAM using the APIs will help you to identify the files and also be able even to delete them, okay? And also there are some third-party tools. Some of them are paid, like Git Central, but also Gopher for Drive, which is free, will help you to run a report on your whole domain and have a list of all the different files that users are having on their Google Drive. Also, another thing that some admins may think, okay, I cannot delete the Drive file or Gmail data. There are different ways in which you can act on that. First of all, using GAM and the APIs in order to be able to delete Drive and Gmail data. Also, some third-party tools like Git Central have some, facilities to help on that. And finally, Google Vault, which is one of the unknown tools on Google for education, can help you to define the retention policies on your Google Drive or Gmail data in order, for example, to have your mails to be lasting for 18 months or 2 years. And after that, they are going to be deleted because of that retention rule, okay? This is something that is interesting in some use cases because it will help you to keep the user's email, for example, under control, being notified to the users for sure and educating them, and knowing that, for example, if they put a specific label called in-depth, they will be able to keep the data forever, but not, every single email, only the emails that are significant for them, okay? Finally, there are some other things that you can do. For example, when you are onboarding a user who has a lot of shared files or shared drives in the domain, you will be able to do that with an onboarding process on GAM using the APIs, or even using the investigation tool in order to know how the documents are being shared, and to be able to change the user files sharing in bulk with those tools. Finally, things that are coming soon. Some of them are basically ready to run. Some of them will be in the next weeks or months. One is, for example, on shared drives, you will be able to suspend the drive instead of deleting them. Sometimes, I don't know, a person has gone into a leave and you don't know what to do with the documents. You can keep it, suspend it, and later recover that when the person comes back. So that's something that is going to happen. Also, there will be the possibility to put the storage limit on shared drives, which is not present today, but is going to be in the next weeks. It's committed for the end of the year, and you will be able to define some limits on the shared drives in order, for example, to define a faculty shared drive or some specific project shared drive with, I would say, 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte as a limit, in order that your users can store that data in the shared drive, but without going over the limit you have defined. Also, there will be, like you can see in the Gmail accounts, those admin alerts saying, informing to your users that they are going over the storage. And also, this is going to happen in the admin alerts in order that your admin knows if a user is going over or if the domain is going over this 80% of utilization. And finally, the tool today is only intended for super admins, but it's going to be a possibility to delegate the access to have a delegated admin to go over these management tools and have a specific person not being a super admin managing that storage flow, okay? So that's it on my side. Thank you very much for your time. I hope this was informative and you were able to understand how it works. In any case, more than happy to have a specific meeting with you, with your university, in order to define what's the plan to manage data storage and how we can help you. Okay?
No, thank you so much, Ishmael and Alistair. It was quite engaging. I think the one element of unpacking the different storage policies and literally revisiting in terms of what the different packages have for our institution. It's quite an enlightening one. I think one thing I learned, Alistair, from you is that if an institution has just gone Google, or maybe you have a legacy system, if you are new, it's not by default that it's going to be pulled accordingly. Everyone will have a 15 gig storage limit until those systems administrators are able to lift those and reassign storage policies according to who actually needs it the most.
Yeah, so if I can just jump in there for a second, it's really important that if you have been running Google for Google Workspace, if you can remember that it was called G Suite or Google Apps, the reality is you should at least between 12 to every 24 months should be doing an audit, and we can assist universities with that. Things change, unfortunately. What was best practice around email security 5 years ago is it's increased significantly. What was good practice around storage 5 years ago, not today. And so it's important to honor at least every 12 months, if not every 24, to have that audit to make sure that you adhere to best practice. Because when Google rolls out a policy, they don't roll it out necessarily to the older domains because it can have an impact on users and that domain and how they work. But You're right, you're pointing out going forward, 15 gig by default, and then you can increase from there.
Yeah, and I think another thing is maybe if there's been a high staff turnover at those institutions, that audit can also even assist in terms of the reassignment of now what needs to be in place for the different
so that really speaks to identity management and how you're doing your identity management, how you are bringing new students and staff on board. I mean, it's really unique. I mean, universities bring on thousands, if not tens of thousands of new users in the beginning of the academic year, and at the end of the academic year they've got to triage those out, and often it's the deprovisioning and taking people off that we don't do well. And that's essentially what we're highlighting. In fact, I think we need to do another webinar on identity management. Let us know in the comments whether you think that's a good idea or not, but we'd love to hear back from you.
No, definitely. So I think what I'm hearing is Google itself makes provision for different elements. So I just wanted to encourage all the higher education institutions right across the continent that if you are not sure where you are at, whether you are an institution that has been using multiple different EdTech tools and you just want to have a sounding board, please just make an appointment. I'll drop a link on the side. Just speak to us so that we can sit down and probably first understand exactly what are your educational needs. And those institutions that say, listen, we are quite aware, we are quite wary of the fact that Google is probably one of the great tool sets and greater platforms to utilize for educational purposes, and you are not Google yet, please let us know. I'm going to drop a link for those institutions that are interested in going Google. For those that don't know it yet, I don't know when it's going to be announced, but there is a data center that will be built right here in Africa. So your data is not going to be sitting somewhere else or somewhere else. It's literally going to be here, hosted here locally. That means that probably you'll be able to retrieve your data much quicker because now the routes are quite short. And I think I just want to encourage those institutions that are currently on fundamentals, that if you want to, you've heard Alistair speak about all of these advanced tool sets in the investigation tool. They would have been speaking about different dashboards that you might not be able to see on the fundamentals package that you're on. Please take this opportunity to try it out. I mean, there's a 60-day free trial for Education Plus that you can literally just you drive this car, you try and figure out what can this Education Plus package do for your institution. And I kid you not, you're not going to be disappointed. But with those few words, thank you so much, Ismael. Thank you so much for affording us your time. Alistair, thank you so much. I know you've got so much auditing that you need to do. I mean, people are just flooding your mails by saying, listen, help us. We've got the system in place, but we just want to make sure that everything is tidy, because education has been heavily hit with a lot of cyber crimes, and because people just want what is stored on those files. So I think it's quite important that we just make sure that within our storage banks that everything that needs to be in place is done, and then we're able to triage accordingly. Yeah. So with those few words, Thank you so much to everyone. Looking forward to getting chatting to anyone. I mean, post whatever comments. If you are new to these webinars, just let us know who you are, where you are from, and then we'll take up conversation with you just to find out how is it that your edtech experiences have been in the institutions that you might be representing, and then we can see where we can take the conversation forward. But with those few words, thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Ciao.